Mean Girls (parentheses 2024) is the feature adaptation of the 2018 Broadway musical, which is based on the 2014 comedy film Mean Girls, which is itself inspired by the 2002 parenting book Queen Bees and Wannabes. Tina Fey returns to recycle the same script and collect a check while the first-time directors shoot a music video. After 20 long years, the movie has finally been reimagined for a bold new generation. Now there's iPhones! Sam, me and you just got back from seeing the new Mean Girls
Sure did.
musical film.
It's a movie.
I think to establish ahead of time, there's a couple of important things. One is that neither you nor me are the primary demographic, I would say, for this film.
Yeah.
And two is that I have seen the original Mean Girls.
I have tried to see the original Mean Girls, but it's not on any streaming service, so I have not.
Sam is looking at this narrative with, I would say, relatively fresh eyes.
I've seen clips of it on TikTok, of course, and I've seen parts of it, like, just from, like, walking in on, like, people from school, like, watching it on their laptops or whatever, but I've never, like, actually seen the whole movie. But, like, I'm familiar with the story. I've seen clips of it on TikTok and stuff. Like, I have seen parts of it before. I've never watched the whole movie.
But I have seen the original Mean Girls, so going into this, I didn't have really many expectations at all, other than the fact that I thought the other people in the audience would all be wearing pink and probably be teenage girls.
That would be correct.
And we were both correct.
That would be an accurate assumption to make.
But this movie is not particularly great, unfortunately.
Fine.
I'd say, yeah, you probably thought it was more fine than I did.
It was okay.
Because you're probably more looking at it as its own thing. I'm not really. I'm looking at it more of as like a remake of...
Kind of draining. It was like... It made me tired. Like... like, they would do one famous scene, and the way I know it's a famous scene is because it's one of the ones I've seen on, like, TikTok or whatever. And then they would sing for like 5 minutes, but the song never moved the story forward, and it was usually just repeating like a sentence. Like they would just say the same sentence over and over, and it's just whatever the first thought that the character had was at the end of the last scene. So they would do that, and then the next scene would start, and then they just kept doing that over and over again for like 2 hours.
Because to be clear, this movie is at its core just Mean Girls again.
Yeah. But
it looks like a movie that came out in 2024 as opposed to a movie that came out in 2004.
Which, if they wanted to do that. But they didn't do that.
Like, all of the changes are, like, aesthetic. There's very few core story differences, which for me, I think made this movie feel a little bit more tired than it probably did for a lot of people.
You definitely could have done some differences. Like, you could have changed the story so that the fact that they all have phones and social media plays a larger role, but really all that they use...
It's mostly just used as a flashy editing trick for some songs.
They montage it sometimes to get, like, the school's reaction to, like, things that are happening. So rather than, like, characters gossiping at lunch, it'll play a montage of, like, oh my god, did you see that Rebecca, whatever her name is, just, like, ate dirt in the parking lot? Oh my god. And it's like... All right, okay. Why do so many kids at this school post okay, again, this is like... Is it thunderstorming outside?
Apparently.
It just started thundering. It wasn't thundering a minute ago. But, like, it just started, like... It's a very boomery movie. Like,
very boomer.
Like, it's... the understanding that the movie has of, like, social media and its effect was very boomerish, in my opinion. Like, no one does any of those things.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Mean Girls, the movie, is all about, like, social dynamics largely prevalent at that time. And in a lot of ways, they haven't changed over the years, which is why I think this movie, the original movie, has such staying power.
Yeah, I think this absolutely could have been adapted very well to the modern times, but they didn't really adapt anything.
Because there's not a lot of movies you can say are, like, cultural phenomenons. the original Mean Girls
Is.
is a cultural
Yes.
phenomenon. The quotes and memes and the visuals and the cast of that movie have been like just prevalent in American pop culture and probably global pop culture in a lot of ways for 20 years since that movie came out.
My 60-year-old history teacher in a high school once like randomly made a one-off reference to Mean Girls.
Everyone is aware.
Yeah.
Probably not a lot of people have seen Mean Girls than like you would think.
But everyone knows the
everyone
references.
knows Mean Girls. So I thought it was kind of disappointing that this movie became almost a highlight reel of like Mean Girls stuff.
It was a TikTok
but with the music
montage clip music video of Mean Girls.
Because I think going more in depth into what we're talking about, the script here is the same script from the first movie with a few different jokes, which I think actually
some of them I thought were pretty funny.
Which some of them are okay.
Some of the jokes I didn't really have any like big like belly laughs, but like there were a couple jokes where I was like, okay, that was all right, that was pretty funny. But like I'd say like it was like half and half. Half of the jokes I was like, okay, all right, that was I like that was funny, and then the other half was like, oh my god, kill. Yeah, that was so I want to die.
And I think that's a result of this. I think there's like 4 groups of people here in this movie's process. I think this movie was birthed by a studio executive saying, Mean Girls is popular. How do we cash in on Mean Girls? I know. Let's remake Mean Girls and we'll do the musical stuff as an excuse to do so, right? And then I think they went to Tina Fey, who came back and has sole screenwriting credit on this movie, wrote the original movie.
Yeah.
I think they said, hey, we're going to do Mean Girls again. Do you want to write it? If you say no, we'll go to someone else.
We'll do it anyway.
And
so
I
you
think
might
she
as well
probably
say yes.
went, well, if they're doing this, I might as well get paid. And I don't blame her for that at all. So I think she basically just like reordered the script a little bit, threw in some probably like different jokes she didn't include in the original or jokes she's come up with since. And then everything else is pretty much the same. And then they came in, and the Broadway soundtrack doesn't entirely make it in here. There's a lot of cut songs because the Broadway show is very long. I'm not really familiar at all with the Broadway show. I haven't heard any of the music from it.
I've heard some of the music
I heard for the first time.
I've heard some of the songs again, just like through TikTok. Some of them are like popular on TikTok. I didn't know that they were from Mean Girls. Like a lot of the songs I've heard completely out of context, just like on TikTok. Mm-hmm. And then I would be like, oh, I've heard that part before. Like the modern feminism talking, I'm wearing shoes I can't walk in, whatever. I don't remember what the exact lyric is. But like that I've heard that has been used a lot on TikTok. I didn't know that was from Mean Girls. Apparently it is. And there were a couple other scenes, like moments like that, where like I'd hear a snippet of a song and I'd be like, oh, that's where that came from. But like that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and because of that, I think this is a script that is in conflict with the musical elements of itself, where
they feel very tacked on.
Scenes in the original Mean Girls move at a normal pace for a movie, right?
Yeah.
And this, because you're cramming all of these songs, and it does feel, unfortunately, like they just stuck songs in
The pacing
here.
is so slow
because the songs, again, this is an issue we talked about on our podcast when we talked about Wish, and they did it much less in Wonka. A much better musical, I would say. I think you would probably agree.
I would agree.
That songs and musicals have to move the story along and develop the characters in a way that a generic pop song doesn't.
Yeah.
And because the script is not written well to include the musical numbers, because what we have here is a Broadway book, right? The script for the Broadway show, which was written around those songs. And this script, which was written not around those songs, because Tina Fey is not a Broadway music, like
the musical didn't exist when she made the movie.
She's writing a script and saying the songs can go here. They don't have songs and saying the script goes around this.
Now it's not like Wish where the songs felt like they were just completely unrelated.
Completely out of nowhere, yeah.
They did fit into the movie, but because we'd see a scene play out from beginning to end, and that scene would be over, and then the song version of it would start.
Yeah.
And they would go through all the same thoughts and ideas again. This time they're just singing what they just said 2 minutes ago.
The only times in the songs where actual necessary information to move the plot forward is given is when the song stops and two characters talk to each other for a second and then the song resumes.
Yeah.
So I think there is a way you could just cut out all of the musical numbers from this movie and it would be the exact same.
Yeah, that movie already exists. It's called Mean Girls.
It's called Mean Girls. And what that does to the pacing is that scenes that have reached their natural conclusion then extend several minutes too long because we've just added a musical number about what just happened to the end of it.
And we already saw what just happened because we just saw it happen. And we were there.
Again, unfortunately, none of the music in this is particularly strong. It's all fairly generic pop music.
I feel like it would have fit very well in a purely musical context. Because, again, these songs are popular on their own right. Like, they have a bit of a life of their own outside of both the musical they're from and from the original movie that they are inspired by. Like, I don't think the problem is necessarily with the music. It's when you take the music and you put it right next to the movie, because they are the same. Like, okay, there's the scene where, like, the main character shows up to the Halloween party and she's in, like, a bride costume.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you can't wear that because now you're like slut-shaming us and don't do that. That's not cool. And then they sing a song about that exact same concept for 3 minutes and nothing new is conveyed. They just say it again. And I was like, okay, so you only need to have one of those things. One or the other. Don't do both. You don't
need both.
If you want to do the song version, do the song version. If you want to do the dialogue version, do the dialogue version. But don't do both. They should have just picked one and gone with it. And then they could have switched it up. They could have had dialogue scenes and then music scenes. But they did both every time, and it was very draining.
And in terms of the songs themselves, I found them to be overproduced in several ways. I thought the musical tracks themselves, they had obviously added like a lot of synthesized like drum beats and like guitar riffs that were obviously not in the original composition that they just
I don't know. I haven't heard the original soundtrack.
I'm not familiar with the original soundtrack. This is just what I'm assuming based on the movie because this is what it sounded like to me. And a lot of the actors who aren't singers, there's two in this that I know have like a singing career outside of this. And then the rest of them aren't. And there's very obvious auto-tuning going on that's very apparent in some of the musical scenes themselves. Specifically, the ones who don't have that is Renee Rapp, who I know is a singer outside of this. I don't think she had a lot of auto-tuning. And then Alihi Corvajo, I know I said that name wrong, plays Janice. I know she also is a singer. She also voiced Moana in that movie.
Which one's Janice?
She's the one with all the piercings and stuff. Her face.
I don't remember Janice.
The lesbian one.
Oh, the like art girl.
Yeah, she has a song at the very end.
Okay, I didn't know she was Moana.
She was Moana. I think her song also had less auto-tune, but the rest of them I just found them to
what
be like.
Song did she sing?
She sings
right, she did the middle finger song.
Yeah.
Which didn't make any sense because she was using both her hands. She used
both her hands.
The song says use your right finger. So, but dude, but she just kept doing both. I'm like, dude, do the one finger.
So the songs themselves, like audio-wise, sounded overproduced to me. And then the way that they're shot is so weird and wildly inconsistent. I found it really baffling. And it was obviously an intentional choice. I don't understand why they made it. Specifically, what I'm talking about is when the musical numbers hit, oftentimes the aspect ratio and the lighting of the scenes will change, where it'll become a wider frame and the lighting will become like more theatrical.
More intense.
Yeah. But it's not for all of them.
Yeah, it's for like half of them.
And for some of them, it'll change mid-song back to the original aspect ratio and lighting.
Yeah.
And that I don't understand. Even if you're going to have it be for specific numbers, it should be for the whole number. I don't understand why you're switching in and out. It's just like visually very discombobulated.
I would like to compare it with The Greatest Showman, because I think The Greatest Showman did a much better job with this kind of sort of half movie, half musical type fusion thing, especially with the musical numbers. Because when the Greatest Showman did a musical number, they fully committed to the musical number.
Yeah.
There was choreography, there was a big intense set pieces, all this stuff, right? And even when it wasn't a small, like the scene that takes place in the tavern with the rich kid and the main circus running guy, right? That scene is highly choreographed. It takes place in a very small area, and the lighting is not super different. It's like relatively the same as like the previous scenes, but they fully commit to the musical act, and it makes it seem a lot more creative, or not creative, but a lot more like a musical. It just feels more like a musical.
And
it feels more intentional. Whereas this one, it kind of feels like they were like, all right, well, okay, I guess we'll do it like this, but no, we'll change this one here. I don't really like the way this looks.
Because we have first-time directors here who are mostly known, who have all like worked almost entirely in music videos before this, and you can tell. But I think they weren't quite sure how to make the musical numbers feel cinematic. Because on a Broadway show stage, right, you have a musical number. You have that big wide stage and that very minimal set, and you have all that space to work with. And there's only so many ways to work with a Broadway set in choreographing a musical.
Yeah.
And also you have that where it's physically in front of you and the music is live, and the audience in a way can get invested that you can't during a movie musical. In a movie musical, you have to very, very precisely stage the number, and you have to, it's a lot more difficult to make a musical number feel big in a movie format.
Yeah, the musicals,
and they don't really
they did not feel big,
because they felt confined with space, and I know that was probably like a budget limitation for them, but they feel very confined, and again, very music video-esque.
The only one that
none of the characters' movement feels intentional. It feels like we're just moving to move because there's music.
This is where you have to go because it's music time.
Like the choreography in this, and some of it's pretty good. I would say it was more good than bad, but a lot of it does feel like
there's not enough.
There's people on screen. They just gotta be doing something, so they're just kind of doing flips,
and
waving their arms around.
I don't really have any problems with the choreography itself. My problem was with the scale.
Yeah,
most of the songs felt very small scale.
Yeah, where a character would just like blurt into song and just kind of sing to themselves in a room.
Yeah, and then it would be over, and then it would stop. All right,
There's
weird.
one in the middle, which is I think it's called like Sabotage Party or something like that.
The one at the Halloween party.
No, the one it's the one after the Halloween party where I think you were in the bathroom. She gets home and they sing a revenge party. That's what it's called. But it goes into like this alternate reality where it's a lot more colorful, and there's all this movement and there's costumes and all this. I thought that was an actual good
that should be what they're doing.
Staging a musical number. A lot of the other ones will just be you have your base set and you're kind of like taller framing, right?
Yeah.
And then it would get wide and it would get intense lighting, and then a character would just kind of do a walk around the set while singing and then just kind of sit back down. Go back to where they were. And it was part of what contributed to making the musical numbers not feel like they were moving the story forward.
Yeah.
Which again is the big problem here, is that we have these musical numbers that aren't unique enough or grand enough to warrant their own weighing down of the film's narrative. And when your film's narrative is the same narrative from a movie from 20 years ago,
you need the
two
spice.
Things add together to make a movie that does not feel very interesting or engaging.
You need to have the musical numbers be big and be bold in order to justify this movie's creation.
Especially when they are dragging out the
scenes. Because if the musical numbers are not the main draw, then you didn't need to make this.
Yeah.
Because this is the musical version. The musical numbers should be big. They should be creative. They should be full of expression. That's the thing. They did not feel like they were expressive. They felt like they had to be there. Like what was being expressed in the first Halloween one where the girl's like dressed as a mouse and like talking about how sexy everyone's costumes are. Nothing's really being expressed. She's just talking about how sexy everything is. Like what's being expressed when the girl is like talking about how she has a crush on the guy for the first time and she's good at math but she doesn't get love or whatever.
They are expressing
Nothing's really
emotions,
being expressed.
But they're not emotions that weren't expressed in the scene before.
Like it should be huge. Like we should if you're going to, like the whole point of a musical is to exaggerate
it should be
the emotions.
Theatrical.
It should be exaggerated, but it wasn't. It was the same. It was slightly exaggerated, but not as much as it
They
needed to be.
tried to exaggerate it visually,
Especially
it didn't
for
translate.
Mean Girls.
Mhm.
Because the whole premise of Mean Girls is every single character is a stereotype.
Yeah.
Everyone is turned up to 11. The gay dude, super gay.
Yeah.
The popular girls, so obscenely popular that like the entire world cares about what they're doing, even though that's delusional. Like the nerd girl is a super nerd.
Yeah.
She's insanely nerdy. Like has absolutely no socialization whatsoever. Like
The new kid is from another country.
the new kid's from Kenya.
Yeah.
Like everything is exaggerated. Everything's cranked up to 11. That's part of the charm of that world.
Yeah.
And when the musical numbers don't go above and beyond to really go that one step further, it doesn't justify
Yeah,
itself.
it doesn't feel like it was necessary.
Yeah.
And I think I want to quickly touch on characters in this, and this is probably not something you noticed as much as I did, but the supporting characters, well, this part you did notice. There's only, and we counted, there's 4 characters who have musical numbers in this. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's an hour and 45 minutes long, and it's a musical, and 4 characters sing throughout the entire thing.
There's very little variation.
Katie,
yeah.
our main character, sings about 60% of the songs.
Yeah.
Regina George sings about 30. And then, what's her face? Janice has 1 number, and Karen has 1 number. Oh, and Gretchen has a really, really short one. I forgot
Who's
about
Gretchen?
her. In the closet, lady with the music box.
Oh, all of the best friends get one song.
They all get one.
The like
Hers
one,
is
the one
real
who's
short,
really
though.
dumb. She sings the song about how like sexy everyone's costumes are,
Which was just a fun number.
totally unnecessary.
Totally unnecessary.
It was a fun number, but it didn't need to be there.
Yeah, and those 2 characters I really thought were shortchanged in this because I really liked, I'll find her name, Avantika is what she's credited as in the movie. She plays Karen, who's the dumb one.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was really good in this.
I thought she was really funny.
I thought she was really funny. I thought she played dumb really, really well, and they take her stupidity.
Yeah,
like,
it
way
got a
further than I
little
think they
bit
ever have before.
because
than they did with the original.
She was, as far as I understand it, she's supposed to be like ditzy.
Yeah.
In this one, she's like a lobotomite. Like she's actually like should be institutionalized. Like this woman cannot care for herself.
But I thought she played it really well. I thought she had really good energy and screen presence. I liked, in general, most people in this. The ones I'd say I have an issue with were Aaron Samuels in this. Feels like a big fat nothing burger. The boyfriend.
Oh.
Yeah, he's nothing.
He's
just kind of there.
He contributes zero
Yeah.
zero character to the movie.
And he's just kind of there in the original movie too. But again,
it would have been nice to see
if
them
we're gonna
spice it
do
up a
this
bit.
again, right? And we're remaking Mean Girls, let's try to address some of maybe the problems in that original movie.
Like, okay, perfect.
Instead, they just kind of ignore it and just do it again.
A perfect version of that character in my mind is sort of like Ken from the Barbie movie.
Yeah.
Because he also is like, his whole stereotype is he's just the boyfriend who's like just there. And they do a great job with that like idea. And this one, we're kind of going, not that these are like the same people or whatever, but like, I feel like we're going kind of back to that. All right, yeah, he's there. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways,
give him a number. Give him a musical number. Why
give him
not?
something.
Give him
Just
something.
Give
to do.
me. I
And
know
the other
nothing
two
about
friends.
this guy.
The friends have more to do in the original movie than they have to do in this. Like even they are shortchanged.
Yeah. Because we have to cut stuff to make time for the musical
we have to cut
numbers.
stuff to make stuff for the musical numbers. So several characters in this feel shortchanged by this format. I just think, in general, I'm sure the musical is fine. I know people in general like it. I think adapting it into a movie in this way just personally did not work for me. There were a lot of things. I just didn't have fun with it. Honestly, that was the big.
Yeah. I was kind
wanted
of expecting this to be a little more
fun. I found it to be kind of generic and going through the motions and often.
I think I
very
said this when
dragged
we
out.
were leaving, but like this is the movie that I was afraid Barbie was going to be.
Yeah.
Like where it feels very generic. It's like doesn't really have a whole lot to say that it hasn't already said before. And yeah, that's kind of what I got from this.
And they also like litter in some cameos in here. About half of them have been in the trailer.
Yeah, I think
But
Megan
none
Thee
of the
Stallion
cameo
was there.
roles have anything to do. That's very
No, they
fun.
like pop up randomly.
John Hamm plays the PE, the sex ed teacher in this, who's like a coach.
And he doesn't know how to spell for some reason.
The one funny line he has in this, they put in the trailer. Ashley Park, who was in the Broadway production, has a cameo in this as the French teacher. She doesn't have really anything.
She doesn't do anything in the movie.
Spoilers, kind of spoilers for a narrative you already know. But Lindsay Lohan shows up as a cameo at the end.
Why wasn't Lindsay Lohan the mom?
But she doesn't have any lines. She
should have been the mom.
Yeah, she should have just been the mom. Like, that would have been something. Like, they don't even give her like a funny role.
And like
she's just there.
What's the name of the woman who plays Pam?
Oh, Jenna Fisher plays the mom.
Jenna Fisher's great. She's great
fine.
mom. But she's not in she has like 2 scenes, I think. Like actually 2 scenes. She's there at the very beginning, and then she's like
Kinda
there when the
end.
daughter like tries to get out of going on the trip.
There's a dad in the original version. They just cut him out.
The dad's gone.
There's
no dad.
Just mom.
None of the characters have dads.
No.
There was no dads in the whole movie.
George's dad is on screen
He's
for
gone.
like 3 seconds.
I wasn't sure if that was her dad or just some guy.
It could have been just some guy. They don't even say.
They didn't say. That's probably just a dude.
Yeah, you're right. No one in this movie has
that could be the dad of the boyfriend that she's with.
That's true.
Like, that's just some dude.
Yeah,
I don't know
no
who
one
that
has
was.
dads in this.
No, none of the characters have dads
They're
that
all
are
dead.
at least confirmed have dads.
They're all dead. That's my theory. They're all
that
dead.
would explain a lot.
But anyway, yeah, Sam, would you recommend Mean Girls?
No, I don't think I would. Because, like, the original movie exists already. And it's, like, covers all the main story.
If you're a fan of Mean Girls, you're just going to watch
and
the
it's not...
original again.
The Broadway is a better musical, and the movie is a better movie. So this is just kind of worse than both. So why would you watch this one?
It's not doing either of the things it's attempting to do
as good as the original.
As the other versions.
So just see those.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not bad. I don't get me wrong. It's not a terrible movie. It's not a terrible production.
It's not trash.
It's just
like that.
unnecessary. Like, it's not better than the originals. So, like, why bother? It's like how I can't recommend The Lion King because, like, why would I? The original one's better. Just see that one
and like
instead.
everyone in the audience of this movie was very obviously like a Mean Girls fan, but the Mean Girls fans are probably just gonna check this out the one time
and be like, all right, that's fun.
If they ever want to watch Mean Girls again, they'll just
watch the original
ones.
That's the thing. This has no cultural.
Yeah,
this is not a cultural landmark.
It's not saying anything new.
No,
it's saying the same thing. Message. It's just it just looks different, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so that's our thoughts on Mean Girls. If you like this video, please subscribe. If you want to hear more of our thoughts, we have a podcast. I'll link in the description below.
The McDon Cast.
The McDon Cast. We'll be back.
And actually, we have an entire backlog of like infinite reviews for you because this this used to be a segment on the podcast.
Now it's its own thing.
So if you're interested in this, just go to our old podcast and skip to half, and you're good to go.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.